I just spent over 150 hours playing Gacha GTA. I mean, the Everness closed beta too, and here's what I have to say. I had a ton of fun over the past 14 days playing the recent closed beta. The city was full of life, and things to find and discover around every corner. References, cool NPCs, hidden interactables, hidden quests, all sorts of activities were there. But for the most part, I spent roughly 80 to 90% of my time just running, walking, riding, and driving around the city of Hetero, looking around, seeing what I could interact with, play with, and how the NPCs would react, racing, or simply just messing around. Especially with the game's wanted system for committing certain acts against public order and all. You can as well get a warrant on you and have the cops come chasing after you. And these guys, they can be really, really aggressive. They can, and they will, try to hunt and chase you down to the ends of the earth. Or at least until your warrant is cleared. And believe me, when I say they are insanely aggressive, they do not care if other NPCs, their property, or even themselves get blasted and harmed in the conflict. And yeah, by committing acts against public order, I mean things like taking other NPCs' vehicles without permission, destroying public property, or even stealing stuff from shops throughout the city. And the more and more you do it, the more and more stars you may accumulate, and the more aggressive they get towards you. At 1 star, they start chasing you and setting up blockades. 2 star, they send in the attack drones, shooting explosive projectiles at you, and increasing their aggression ever further. And then finally, at 3 stars, you get transported to another dimension where you meet the Justice Executioner, which will attempt to bring justice upon you. Fun fact, if you're able to defeat and survive the encounter with the level 99 Justice Executioner, there's a really, really cool hidden S-rank secret arc that you can get and use on your main character. And if you're wondering what an arc is, it's basically the game's version of weapons, and we'll talk more about that later. Obviously, there are tons of activities you can do and interact with throughout the city. Stuff like buying housing and properties and vehicles are some of the main ones, however there's even more to do on top. Some of the activities include racing other NPCs or players, buying, managing, and even running a cafe or several of your own. Going around as a truck driver making deliveries. There are hidden mini-games such as a crane game or claw machine, or a rhythm game where you get to play a drum kit. There's also hidden features and shops and stuff like an auction that occurs every weekend, where you can bid on various different items and exclusive materials used to upgrade various different anomaly furniture for your house, or other materials to even, or ingredients to help you upgrade things in your shops or your characters and stuff. There's all sorts of just various different shops as well littered throughout the cities, again for you to go buy ingredients or even gifts and furniture that you can then use in your own housing or even give to other characters or NPCs. Now, let's get into the topic of the exploration. NT is the first open world gacha game that actually feels like it's finally given purpose and justified actually having an open world. If you're wondering about what you can do here, treat the game like an open and free sandbox where you can explore and enjoy it at your own pace. Everything in the world and city of Hetero and NTE is there for you to do because you want to do it, not need to do it. There is no bribes or forced BS. No mint picking, no random boring tedious chest hunting, or any of that garbage. If you want garbage, go and look for a trash bin or something, maybe even kill a few, your choice. As for the movement, the typical walking, running, jumping, climbing, dodging, gliding stuff are present. There's even a double jump. Some characters even have an extra bonus interaction with the world and the environment. Yes, although technically there are a bunch of characters with exploration passives, they aren't as important as you might think, and they aren't really going to be used as often as you might imagine when it comes to traversal mechanics, as you pretty much use vehicles as your primary means of transportation. And keep in mind, the game does take place in an urban setting, so you're able to get on scooters, cars, motorcycles, and use those to drive around. There are also buses and trains you can ride as well. Same time too, if an anomaly, puzzle, or event or situation requires more specialized movement, the game will already give you all the tools you need to clear them regardless of whatever your character you are using. So any of you Doom posters or clowns out there trying to find fault here, calm down. leave and go back to the circus. Oh, and here's another cool thing. When you defeat a boss in the world for the first time, outside of any story, you will obtain a special surprise item as a bonus. And that's right, you get the opportunity to take their arc, which is their weapon, from them. Even weekly bosses can do it too on a repeat encounter, as a special reward for clearing them again for the first time. And these aren't just like garbage, trash, filler, fodder weapons, no. It's basically the game's version of a 5-star weapon. They are called S-rank arcs. And then imagine, yeah, for the first time when you kill a boss, it gives you an actual, real, proper reward for it. And not just the garbage amount of materials you will get by spending stamina on them to loot them afterwards that you would need to farm an excessive amount of in order to upgrade a character's levels or skills, although that stuff is still present, unfortunately. Driving an NT feels great, though there is a bit of a learning curve. Assuming, of course, you are using a game controller, the acceleration, deceleration, steering, and all is all analog in terms of input, which means the amount of force when doing any of these actions on your controller will directly affect how much or how little you will accelerate or decelerate, brake, and just steer. That said, this isn't really something you can easily describe and get across through the screen. It's kind of something you need to get your hands on and try with a controller. That said, unfortunately, if you're playing on keyboard and mouse, because all that movement stuff is analog, keyboards are primarily digital-only inputs, which means you either press the key and it's fully pressed down, or you didn't press it at all and nothing happens. That said, though, in terms of handling, once you get a full experience of it, it handles a lot better than some other driving games I've played that do feature some level of this stuff. And compared to something like GTA 5, the driving and handling is honestly a lot smoother and easier to get a hold of from my experience. Next is the story. And in all I can say, in short, I really, really enjoyed it and had a blast playing through it. The voice acting is great. The characters are very lively and expressive. It's a ton of fun to watch them interact with each other in the main story and spin-off missions. The story itself gives me a ton of vibes, reminding me of cartoons I used to watch on TV as a kid. It's not meant to be some super crazy, in-your-face, high-stakes, constant destruction or disaster at every turn kind of story, but rather more of a slice-of-life type of story about the characters and the city of Heathrow. Honestly, if you want steaks, there's dozens of shops out there that'll probably sell you some steak to eat, I guess. Oh, and another cool thing is throughout the city, you can meet various different NPCs that can be given various different side missions for you to complete, and they can be unlocked as well once your bond level is built up enough for them, further adding more into the background of the NPCs, what they do, and piecing together more and more of what happens in the city. The story itself acts as a way to introduce you to some of the features to interact with, such as the auction system, the crane minigame, drum kit rhythm minigame, some racing modes, and so on. The game also has support for multiplayer lobbies. Multiple players can join up and free roam the city. Currently in the beta, it's limited to 4 players total, and unlike some other Gotacha games that allow multiplayer in the open world, all players are able to use all 4 characters in their party. Players can drive around and even ride in each other's vehicles. Enemies in the overworld can be fought together in multiplayer, making even a faster way to defeat enemies out and about. There's also a multiplayer racing mode for players to race against each other with their vehicles. Hopefully this feature gets built on and expanded on in the future, with more and more activities and things to do with other players as well. Next thing we'll be going over on is the combat. The combat in NT is pretty reminiscent to the mechanics and gameplay seen before in dozens of other action, combat, hack and slash gacha game out there. Like usual, characters have a basic attack, a dodge, a skill, special skill, ultimate skill. The game even has its own version of an elemental reaction system with its Esper cycles, where when you fill a gauge, the next character you send in, as long as their element is adjacent to your previous character in the wheel, they will perform an intro skill and trigger an Esper cycle, causing all sorts of various different effects to occur depending on which you trigger. And when in combat, you also have mechanics such as a parry, as well as a critical dodge. Executing either of these actions will result in the boss taking extra damage to its break gauge than usual from any other attack. And yeah, as I mentioned before, all enemies and bosses have a break or a shield gauge that when depleted, the boss will enter a knocked down state where they will be stunned and take extra damage for a brief period of time. Oh, and did I mention that there's also no cooldown when swapping back and forth between each character? And additionally, swapping characters mid-combat animation will leave the characters on the field to finish their attack. And part of the reason of this is that some of the Esper cycles can get really complex with how you play, resulting in you constantly swapping multiple times back and forth, dancing around each of the characters using each and every single one of their abilities to weave everything together. Of course, while we're on the topic of combat, you need a way to enhance and upgrade your characters to further improve their performance in combat. And like usual, typical live service gacha game stuff, character levels come from stamina-gated materials. Same with characters needing specific materials to limit break or raise their level caps. Again, those are stamina-gated to bosses. Weapon arts have similar things as well for increasing their level and ascending them. And then same thing as well, character skills also require materials, which you guessed also come from stamina-gated instances where you fight a bunch of trash mobs in another mini arena. As for the actual gear, relic, artifact, or whatever you want to call it, we need to go down the rabbit hole of the console, which is this game's version of the equipment system. And yes, the place where you find these items is actually called the rabbit hole. Well, as they say, any hole's a goal, I guess. Anyways, that aside, console equipment comes in two parts, cartridges and modules. And each of these come in 3 types of rarities, ranging from blue, purple, and gold. Gold being the highest rarity and blue being the lowest. The stat value overall between each rarity is about 25% per tier difference, meaning a purple piece has 1.25x the stats of a blue piece, and a gold piece has, you guessed it, 1.25x the stat values of the equivalent purple piece. The cartridges are directly obtained as a random drop from spending stamina in the rabbit hole, while modules are obtained from drops from spending coins, which you obtained from, you guessed it, the rabbit hole. However, these coins are instead used in a slot machine-like minigame interface, which is disguised as an arcade cabinet. And in terms of stats for the cartridges, they can have a random main stat ranging from attack, HP, defense percentage stats, as well as each Esper type's specific damage bonus. There's also break intensity, Essentia, which is basically the game's version of like an elemental or Esper cycle reaction bonus, healing bonuses, critical rate, and critical damage stats. In the moment you obtain a cartridge or a module drop, they will also have 4 random substats. You can see all the substats a piece will have the moment you obtain them, and they will always be at their maximum possible stat budget or value. Meaning, what you see is exactly what you get, and outside of getting the thing to drop, there is no other RNG involved. And the substats as well for something like these pieces of gear, those ones are again the percentage and flat stats for attack, defense, HP, break intensity, essential damage percent, critical rate percent, and critical damage percent. Again, like I said earlier, the stat values of these are always fixed to have the maximum value. They can also be duplicates of what you get as the main stats, so keep that in mind. These also apply to the individual modules, which come in different block sizes, being 2, 3, or 4 blocks in terms of size. They also come in different shapes, The main stats on these ones, though, will always be HP and attack. And the same rules for the substats are the same as the cartridges. Something of note as well. Stacking a bunch of 4-block modules in the little puzzle piece thing for the console on each character isn't really what's important. Instead, your goal is to try to match the puzzle pieces that whatever cartridge you have equipped on them to trigger the stat bonuses, and then filling in the rest of the slots with whatever good pieces you have and filling up as many of those spaces as you possibly can. The stats as well on a 2-block module is half the stats of a 4-block module, meaning 2-block modules is the same as equipping a 4-block module. And a 3-block module has 50% more stats of a 2-block module, as it's 3 blocks instead of 2. Because of this, the way the gearing system works here, while there is still a decent amount of randomness involved, it's a lot less punishing to some of the other random gear systems I've seen in other games out there, as the value of stats in between each gear upgrade is small enough where if you don't have a really good piece that's of, like, say, a good enough gold piece, the actual amount of stats you get for slotting in an extra blue module or cartridge instead isn't that big of a loss in the grand schemes, as it's only a 1.25x reduction in its total stat value for going one tier below. So it isn't nearly as punishing, and of course, you get to see all the stats you have before you even waste the resources to upgrade them. As for the gacha system, it's pretty forgiving compared to the vast majority of other gacha games out there. All limited banners are guaranteed banners, no 50-50 or anything. Arcs, the game's version of the weapons, are also primarily obtained through interacting and encountering events or other activities in the open world. There is a loot box of sorts that you can use to obtain weapons. That said, a good amount of the S-rank arcs are obtained through gameplay and are unobtainable in the loot box. The arcs have a variety of ranges in terms of ranking, from B, A, and S rank arcs that are available. The rates for getting an arc is really high, and you're guaranteed to get at least one S rank arc within 6 loot boxes being opened. Each loot box costs 10 keys, and they contain 10 random arcs. There is a rate up arc, however, and the arc is only about 25%. That said, if you do not get the rate up in 6 loot boxes, you are guaranteed to get it in at least once in every 8 loot boxes total being opened. Keys for loot boxes can be obtained through regular gameplay, events, the mall shop sells them, racing mode also gives keys as a reward for completion, and they also mention in the future again, events will be giving them out. Additionally, if you do not want to deal with the RNG from the loot boxes at all, you have the ability to spend 25 keys instead to directly purchase any unlocked S-rank arc of your choice. Keep in mind you will need at least one of each S-rank arc through direct and actual gameplay to be obtained first, before you can purchase extra duplicates in the shop. In terms of graphics and performance, they are quite great. The characters, the city, the graphics, the vibes, absolutely gorgeous. My main PC that I've been playing and streaming the game from is a RTX 3070 and a Ryzen 7950 X3D. While streaming, running OBS, Vtuber model, overlays, the works, I was able to get a pretty solid 60 plus FPS on 1440p with high and delicate preset settings. I can crank all of these settings up even further and even raise resolution up to 4K while maintaining that frame rate if I wasn't doing all this stuff at the same time. The CPU requirements, they are a bit high, but they're used for things like handling NPC and their AI. However, it's 2025. A lot of the CPUs in the past couple years are more than enough and more than capable of handling this game. You can adjust the traffic settings lower if needed, and on something like my CPU, I was able to get the maximum settings for things like traffic and stuff set, and it was only using roughly around 20 to 30% of my CPU load distributed across all 16 cores and 32 threads. This game was also made with the Intel CPUs that have the efficiency cores in mind, so it's also optimized to make use of those as well, from what I've seen and heard. And again, for an Unreal Engine 5 game, this game's optimization is actually quite an amazing accomplishment overall, especially again on the CPU side. It's actually quite better than even a lot of other just games out there, period, at handling and managing the load on a CPU. And again, if you're wondering how it scales on lower end devices, I have a video on my channel that you can watch where I played it on my Steam Deck. Performance is decent, about 30 to 40 FPS in the overall just driving around, and up to 50 to 60 FPS when indoors. Actually quite comparable to playing something like Cyberpunk on this. Oh, and another thing too, unlike Cyberpunk, this is not playing without any FSR upscaling or anything like that. If we had that though, we could probably get much smoother gameplay and potentially 60 FPS on something like a Steam Deck, which again, a very low power device, runs on what, 15 watts on the CPU and graphics core combined. Your phone, when it charges, probably uses considerably more power when you put that into perspective. And again, like, even compared to like other gacha games with an open world and stuff like that on Steam Deck, its performance is actually quite similar to the experience you get trying to play something like Genshin Impact on this as well. So I'd say overall, despite the deceptively high requirements it's asking and recommending, performance is still quite good. And even like, if you have an old CPU, even as old as like an i7-2600 from 2011, you should be more than capable of running this game on it, even if Windows won't let you install Windows 11 on it. Same thing if you have a 900 series NVIDIA GTX GPU or newer, or the AMD equivalent, which would probably be the R9 300 series, as well as some of their 200 series counterparts. Again, as these also support DirectX 12, anything older than these will not support the DirectX 12 API, so they will not run. But anyways, if you have any of that type of hardware, they should be good, even if those pieces of hardware haven't had any driver support in recent years, as they are more than 10 years old. Now, for the overall gameplay loop in NT, that's mostly going to revolve around exploring the city, discovering anomalies, raising the bond levels with characters, completing various missions, the story, running shots, doing delivery commissions for money, spending character pixels, which is the game's version of stamina, to farm materials, to upgrade characters, to find items and things throughout the city, participating in events or other activities, buying housing, buying vehicles, decorating housing, customizing vehicles, participating in races, upgrading anomaly furniture, and so on. There's just a lot to do. There's also an endgame mode in the Beyond the Rails train station, which is basically this game's equivalent to a stage where you set up teams of 8 characters and an additional support and up to 2 buffs to fight upgraded enemies and bosses you've previously encountered in yet another stupid circle with a timer. But hey, at least the background around it is gorgeous. The main point of the game, though, is to have fun and play around with the interesting things to interact with and everything in the city. Everything, to an extent, is set up in a kind of sandbox-like state for you to experience and enjoy at your own pace. Combat is not the main focus of the game. Unlike some of the other gachas out there, there's actually a game here, not just excessive repetitive chores to fight trash mobs on repeat in an instant stupid circle, to spend stamina for excessive amounts of material so that you can one day go and fight the same things again with more inflated stats in a different stupid circle with a timer. The open world here actually has a purpose and a reason to exist. It is not just there to be a marketing bullet point for players to run around like drug addicts scavenging for change, as they chest hunt for abysmal amounts of premium currency so that they can then use it to take another chance at the slot machine. If you try and play NTE like you play other currently existing open world gacha games like Genshin Impact and its equally awful chroma skin of Wuthering Waves, you are playing it wrong, as it's not the point of the game. Frankly speaking, with how those games handle things, I personally would probably have a better experience in them if their open worlds were removed entirely with how awful and poorly handled they are. Especially when people are concerned about if they can quickly skip and go past everything as they run, glide, fly in a straight line towards the next pile of scrap chest to fuel their gambling addiction, or pick excessive amounts of mint because the game forces you, as it's their only way of hiding the fact that the game over there is basically absent. Of course, no game is perfect. I did encounter a few bugs here and there, but honestly, the way I saw it break and stuff just added more to the fun, as there were less game breaking and more of just funny, silly stuff to see. That said though, there's a couple of things I would like to see added to the game. The vehicle damage and durability mechanics and stuff are a lot of fun to mess around with. Would be cool if they added something like a demolition derby or obstacle courses to take your vehicles through and just destroy each other in vehicular PvP, especially with a bunch of other players. The chaos and stuff could be a lot of fun. Just maybe find an arena somewhere to just add that in. At the same time, I'd love to see more vehicle types being added, stuff like bikes and skateboards and helicopters even. I've seen a few helipads on the top of some buildings as well as the roof of the villa. Same time, there's also a bike shop, so again, adding stuff around those would be great. I'd like to see biker gangs around the city that you could also race and challenge, as racing mode is only for cars unfortunately. Would be cool if that was expanded to those as well. And as well, story-wise, the story is great. I had a lot of fun with it, and it's just really well done. Same with the spin-offs. Would be cool if we could replay them again, even if there are no rewards attached. And then the same again with the special one-time anomalies that are out in the world. Would love to replay them if possible. And for the city gameplay, I'd also like to see just more types of shops you could own and minigames associated with them. Maybe things like running a car wash and having like pressure washer simulator type gameplay, or maybe a factory where you can build assembly lines and have employees work for you and try to meet orders and deadlines and ship those products out. Again, there's a really cool delivery driving commission thing in there, so adding that to expand upon it would be kind of cool as well. Compatibility wise, ideally I'd love to see for Linux or Proton support, Steam input and direct input support for controllers, especially for people who like to play these types of driving games with racing wheels and stuff like that. Of course, better camera mode, expanded multiplayer lobbies and activities, wider FOV options, maybe a first-person mode, and even VR support would be great to have. And again, also maybe a toggle as well, a hotkey toggle to turn on and off UI elements. I can imagine if players are really into things like role-playing with friends and stuff, being able to toggle on and off in the UI would just add a lot to their experience. And in the end, I enjoyed my experience in the game. In the over 150 plus hours I spent playing, all I wanted to do is just play, see, and experience more of what they had to offer. Unfortunately, I still didn't have enough time to fully see and do everything while playing. The thought of even like trying to maintain an account and stuff like that never really crossed my mind, as I was just too focused and distracted on all the activities and overall fun I was having in the world instead. Oh, and if you're wondering about the game's music, it's really good. I've been playing bits and pieces of it in the background of the video, and if you're wondering... And yeah. Oh, and for once in a gacha game, I didn't even think about turning off the game's music. Because usually when I play a lot of these types of games, at some point, I like to just turn off the game's music and just start blasting my own. I can't wait to play and experience more of the game in the future, and I definitely think it's worth checking out. Overall, I'd give it an overall rating of an 8 out of 10. And now that you've made it to the end of the video, I'd love it if you guys would leave a like if you liked it, maybe a comment down below on what you guys have to think about the game. A subscription would be great as well, and hopefully I can see you guys next time. Oh, and if you'd like to see a large chunk of my playthrough of it, I do have gameplay of my previous betas that you can find on my YouTube channel here, as well as in the live tab you can find some of the VODs in which I did play a ton of Neverness to Everness as well on stream.